Hello, Zalto Live listeners. Before we get started, we wanted to let you know that more teachings from Zen monk Claude AnShin Thomas are available in his two books, At Hell's Gate, A Soldier's Journey from War to Peace, and Bringing Meditation to Life, 108 Teachings on the Path of Zen Practice. Both are available wherever books are sold, and all proceeds go to the Zalto Foundation, dedicated to promoting nonviolence, awareness, and positive change.
Hello and welcome to Zalto Live, the podcast featuring Zen Buddhist Monk Claude AnShin Thomas, who will share with you his life experiences that includes not only military combat, personal violence, and addiction, but also healing, transformation, and the ongoing joy of everyday life. Please enjoy listening.
This will be an open session. I did want to mention there are two people at this retreat who have over the past couple of years sat with us online. And Mikula, the yoga teacher, is here. Public talk that I did in Mannheim. Questions? Yes, Peter.
Can the perceived need for trigger warnings go too far?
What's a trigger warning?
That's when you say that there's going to be, like if you're giving a talk, you should say, I'm going to be talking about disturbing material having to do with war or killing, and if you don't like it, then be forewarned or something like that.
I guess in some people's eyes, no. Some people's eyes, yes. From my side, if I'm being exposed to material I don't want to watch, I can turn it off. I'm empowered that way. I don't have to listen to it. And I don't have television. You watch films, and I read the newspapers. I would say some of the scenes that are depicted on videos in the news clips that I have access to, I don't watch them. It's war porn for me. So that's it. I have that choice. Yeah. Question from the group. Okay, Miyoko.
AnShin, I'm curious if you could speak to how writing has been, I don't know if you consider it a form of spiritual practice, or is that, anyway, if you could speak to how writing has served you.
Yeah, I discovered early on that writing gave me access to experiences, information that I wasn't actually aware of, not on the surface of things. I found that writing gives me the possibility to go more deeper into certain topics. But yes, writing is, practice and daily life are not two things, and writing's a part of that. I recently recorded the audiobook for At Hell's Gate. That's an impressive piece of literature. It really is. And that developed out of this process of waking up to the roots of war, violence, and suffering in me. Yes, it is for me, not other than sitting. I will also say that I will sometimes get recordings of these sessions, and the spoken word is very different from the written word. So when I take a text that's been transcribed, it changes quite a bit because context has to be added. And as a result, it becomes much more detailed, much more present with me. Like sitting down and describing this room, and really in the minute details of it, that is not other than meditation. Really, it requires preciseness and detail and reflection. Question? Yes, Myo Shin.
With the wars in Europe and the escalating violence in the Middle East, do you ever feel anxious about the possibility of a third world war?
It's really interesting because I don't sort of make a separation. For example, here in this region, they have a festival, yes, that celebrates a battle between Catholics and Protestants that took place in 1531. It's just an ongoing. Yeah, yes, I do get anxious that it could get bigger. But I also have a measure of that anxiety in the United States because of the level of acrimony. Acrimony is a little less than hatred. It's on the level with hatred. Yeah, it's you could say the polarization. It's unsettling for me, and still it's that makes it even more important for me to do what I do and do it outside in the public, to reach out to all those who've been affected by war, and see what support, if any, I can provide. That took place just maybe a week ago. I accompanied Genrai to a meeting of the Circle of Religions, and there are two representatives from the larger Jewish community in this region. And I think one of the most important things that circle did that evening was to offer their actual support. Not just writing a declaration, but offering actual support. So for me, it's what can I do? It's meditation in action. So I just keep doing stuff. Better than swimming in the soup of my anxiousness. Question from the group. Yes, Genrai.
I read in the newspaper an article where in very detailed horror of war and terror was described. Is there anything you could say on redemptive violence and what it is that drives torture?
I look in the US, what drives redemptive violence? It's the inability to recognize and hold powerful feelings, and it's the inability to understand that violence is never a solution. For every action, there's a consequence. The best that I can do in these circumstances is to not be seduced to not get drawn into the seduction of the narcotic of war and violence. It's just not a solution. It just breeds more violence. It really isn't. I have to live that reality in my life, in all circumstances. Because there's not one thing I can do to actively change what's happening in the world. I can't hear in my life. I can live differently, and I live that out loud. So when I walked from Poland to Vietnam, I came to know a Cambodian monk. His name was Mahagosananda. He was studying in Burma when the Khmer started the annihilation of Cambodian population. They were massacring people of all Buddhist monks and Catholic. They were religion. Everyone of religion was being killed. Academics, intellectuals. And Mahagosananda was driven to return at this point to Cambodia. The abbot of the monastery where he was studying, told him, "You don't go now. You need to stay here, become more steady with this hurricane of feelings." It was so hard for him to do that. But later, he became a moving force in the reorganization of the country, the rebuilding of temples, it's the reestablishment of monastic orders, and serving the larger society in the ways in which he was trained to serve them. Great model for me. When we entered into Cambodia, we were 1,000 people. Refugees were using our pilgrimage to come back home. So I keep sitting just to sit and seeing what the world asks me to do. I keep my intellect as much as I can out of the way. Actually, there's a young woman from the Ukraine here. She's here because she heard about the work that the foundation is doing. And she asked me if I'd be willing to go to the Ukraine. I said, sure. I have an invitation. Can't go unless I'm invited. So we'll see. Question from the group. Yes, Peter.
Do you not make a separation between war and peace, or the current time and world war?
Between categories of wars, First War, Second War, Spanish-American War. They give these explosions of violence, specific names. But from my experience, it's just a constant humanity is in a constant state of war, always simmering. And it's just waiting to boil over. So in reference to World War III, we're just always fighting. And it can get bigger. There's always that potential. Yeah, because there's some big things going on now, not only in Europe and the Mideast. And we forget, in the United States, we kill between 35,000 and 40,000 people every year with handguns. That's a high body count. And from what I understand, this year it's greater. By the 1st of April, there had already been some 20, 30 mass shootings or something. I just feel that humanity is in a constant state of war. Question from the group. Yes, Gabi.
Hello.
So this realization that humanity is in a constant state of war, isn't that for you like helpless and frustrating? And if yes, how do you deal with that?
I suppose, yes, I do feel helpless and frustrated, but at the same time, this helplessness and frustration fuels my commitment to become more and more deeply aware of the roots of war, violence, and suffering in me, and to live that out loud. Question in the group. Yes, Gabi.
The question is, how do you feel now that you're by yourself at the center? Yeah, I got used now to my own rhythms here, and I am just glad for the support I can offer. And currently I actually have a visitor and who is actually here for working meditation. So it's a good mix of things.
Question from the group. Yoshin.
Earlier you talked about being of real, like meaningful support to people affected by war. What is the essence? What is, from your point of view, most supportive to people?
To be able to listen, really listen, my whole being. And let them inform me about what I can do. Really, sometimes just to be present, listen, has an amazingly powerful impact. And I can listen because I know war intimately. Question from the group. Yes, Kenra.
I do have a craving for recognition. How can I not act out of this?
There's no trick to it. If I follow that seduction, it's going to draw me away from the very heart of practice. My practice will become corrupted as a result of that. So I need to decide what's more important. You realize that the Buddha's teachings didn't really come into recognition for somewhere like 100 or 450 years after he died. Yeah, to do this, to do it. Oh, it's so powerful, liberating. Question from the group. Yes, Yoshin.
I'm full of questions.
That's wonderful.
As a combat veteran, what do you understand about the mind of these young men in the Middle East who killed a lot of defenseless women, children, etc.?
It goes to a question that Peter asked me. It's the difference between surrendering into truth and blind obedience. The desperation to feel empowered, the desperation to be a part of. And really, the young and inexperienced, they're so vulnerable to propaganda. The reality of propaganda, that within the fabric of propaganda, there's always an element of truth. But even if it's true, it's still a lie. I spoke about this just last night. I joined the military at 17. I was a true believer. Really, the stories that my family told me, the films that I saw, books that I read, the sports that I played. Yeah, I was a true believer until I found myself in the midst of it. You know, and I'm working with soldiers in this region. Some of them, it's like people of my generation. They had to continue to support the myth that what we were doing in Vietnam was about democracy, about stopping communism. It was honorable and righteous. Because if they accept the truth of our service, their whole worldview becomes destabilized. And they can't stand that. 22 a day kill themselves. It's not an easy feat to come to terms with the complexities of our reality. I'm a soldier. I served honorably. What I did was not honorable. And yet there are aspects of my military service that really do support me in this life. Because I can go into places where people who don't have my experience, I can go there and people will listen to me. Or at least they won't end my life. So soldier in me become transformed. There isn't a formula. You can't do it theoretically. I had to just sit down and allow my world to just crumble, to be willing to falter myself. But there was just no safe place, nothing. I just continue to sit and allow myself to learn how to manage, to live within the complexities of this existence. Most people don't want to do that. They want it this way or that way. You're either my friend or you're not. But think what goes through the mind of the person who sits in a hotel room and murders 60 people at long range. What's going through the minds of young men who learn how to create bombs out of pressure cookers and set them off amongst people who are not their enemy. But in their minds, they are the enemy. They're vulnerable. They feel disenfranchised. They don't have a place where they fit, so they're vulnerable, like I was.
Thank you for listening to this episode on Zalto Live. If you would like additional information, please look at the show notes or visit zalto.org. That's ZALTHO.org. Our work is made possible solely through donations, so please consider making a tax-deductible gift on our website. We wish you well and thank you.